It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports, stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball!
Alrighty, what is going on, everyone? Good morning and welcome back to the throw-in here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Justin, and if you guys have been following the page, I know that the advertisement's been said as is, dated back early Monday, but man, I got to tell you, I apologize for the 3-day absence. Family over the weekend started catching kind of like that 24, 48 hour sick bug, like the flu a little bit. Elias, kind of, he started, throwing up his form, projectile throwing up. I can't just begin to explain to you the level of throw up. I was actually, so Friday evening, on the way home, he's in the back seat in his car seat facing rear-ended, and, we got this, this camera that hooks onto the back of the seat so that you can look at him. And it's a camera that the cord kind of travels up front. And, so anyways, he's in the car seat facing backwards. I know he's pooped because, I can smell it. I'm headed home to change him, take care of that. But then he's projectile vomiting all over himself, and I'm like, I feel so bad. This is the first time I've ever panicked with him, because I was like, oh boy, like he's not feeling good. He's sitting in poop, he's sitting in vomit now, where you have to not only change him, but you have to give him a bath. And I'm like literally at one light away from being home. And man, I just feel so bad, because I understand those moments, and we've all been there. I've had 2 other kids where I'm sure to recollect memories. We've had similar attributes going on, but I just felt bad because he wasn't feeling good, and I started not feeling good. I had a migraine Friday. My worst day was Saturday, a little bit into Sunday, where I was out of it. And, the wife always tells me, or tells the story, that when I'm sick, I act like I'm on my deathbed. And, it's every time I get sick. I try not to get sick, but I feel like whenever I do get sick, it takes a toll on me. It really just drains me out. I mean, if I can't focus, if I can't think, then I'm out of it. And if I'm out of it, don't expect much production to be given from me, so and it started off where I was, kind of throwing up Saturday several times. I couldn't even liquid. I couldn't keep down. And then, you had, the runs, diarrhea, which wasn't fun either. Trying to do that while your wife's at work and you're home alone with the little one who also needs to be fed at the same time. It's like trying to juggle all of that at once is quite difficult. But no, it was bad. And then I got the chills. the hot and cold flashes, no fever. And man, the entire weekend, I felt limp. Saturday was the absolute worst. Where if I went to go stay, the wife let me sleep all day. Thank her to that. But I would go to stand up, and I ended up I felt very weak. I don't want to go carry my son, who's 5 months old now, because I don't want to go. I felt like I was going to fall, and I don't want to fall with him. So, um, man, I gotta say it was bad, and then it passed on to my wife's sister, who's had it with a little 24-hour bug there, all day Sunday, and then my wife, started feeling sick, and then I get a text, you know, my oldest, um, you know, she's getting sick, so that's a 24-hour bug. I'm waiting on, I was waiting on my middle child to get sick, and I think she has more of a cough, cold, um, allergy than anything else. And so it kind of just passed around. So yeah, the attention of starting the morning program was expected for Monday, but with everyone catching up from being not feeling well, um, to kicking things off throughout, this week, I had to push back the day. And it was at the point where I think, like I said, even just jumping on the computer to updating even the website was very, very difficult to do, and I wasn't able to do it. So I'll be doing it hopefully later on today. Um, but it's the month of March. We got a lot of stuff going on. I know, my wife's having some surgery getting done on her ears. Um, I guess one of her, was it eardrum, or her eardrum kind of just dropped in there, so they got to go remount that and fix it and all that fun stuff. That's happening later on this month. And then my two oldest kids are starting softball, and this would actually be my oldest's second year starting softball, because she played last year, and I got extremely excited, because it's like when you don't have a son. I didn't have a son yet. My wife was pregnant with our son at the time, early on in the stages, and so when you can finally start, relating to what you love, to giving it to what to your children, it's like it's so sweet. um so she played softball last year. I enjoyed it for the majority of the part. There's just something about East Coast practices, and don't get me wrong, um I think they did the best with what they were given, but softball is still such a growing community in certain places, and it gets overlooked, especially in the younger youth groups. So to be able to have a league where you could compete for 10 weeks, I think is pretty cool. But I had, that was the adjustment of, all right, this is the time to take them to practice. And then my middle child had soccer. Now she's doing softball, which is going to be a fun time. So I can't wait to practice. Those are 2 nights a week now. Tuesdays and Thursdays, which I think is fine. It spreads out throughout the week, and then they have games on Sunday, which we'll have to coordinate with their mother. But it's going to be a fun time. We got a busy month, but we got a lot of sports to talk about. I had a sheet put together for Monday's conversation, but one of the problems I had with the sheet is that a lot of it was dated back for last week. And since our last episode, it's been practically a whole week. It's like a little bit's outdated. And so I'm kind of just, like, I was thinking last night to myself, how am I going to approach this? Because there are still some conversations that are fresh in our mind, but we're trying to move forward with stories and progress and all that stuff. But we're at the same time, we're also getting closer to end dates. For example, WrestleMania 40, we are just 30 days away, right? Um, and I know I've visited those matches that are set for the card, but honestly, I think we should go back and re-talk about it, because that was 10 days ago when I last gave you guys an update, and there's an update now, and I just feel that um things are starting to pan out, and you can see that occur, and we'll talk about that. But I just feel that I still only see 4 matches booked, and there's a possible 2 more matches, but there's so much talent that still are deserving a spot on the card, that, to me, the way, like, there's storylines that make sense on how you should put them on the card, but at the same time, I feel like WWE is kind of throwing matches together on the fly just to fill the card if they're going to do that. So I don't know. I'll explain a little bit more. But on the other side of things, we're just 21 days away from Major League Baseball opening day. Now, less than 2 weeks from today, so it would be Wednesday and Thursday, so less than 2 weeks now, we will see the Padres and the Dodgers have a 2-game series out in Korea. And that's going to be quote unquote, hyphen, whatever you want to call it, inauguration of the 2024 season. They'll play those 2 games. The Padres will get a home game. The Dodgers will get a home game. They'll come back out to Arizona to wrap up their spring training, and then they'll get ready for their official, opening day, March 28th, I believe. Yeah. But, and basically those 2 games get cut somewhere along the season. So, we've seen that before. It's kind of unique, I think, Padres are notorious, and the Dodgers are notorious for going down to Mexico. And so they get to, they get the luxury of that series. I've seen Dodgers in Arizona go to Japan, I believe, a couple years ago before the pandemic. So I think this is the first time where, I know back, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, they were trying to take a team or 2 teams out to a different country to kind of showcase the, United States baseball. And I think that stopped because of the pandemic and, this and that. I know they've been to Tokyo and all that fun stuff. So, but we're 21 days away. And what I want to talk about is the heading into, as we wind down, is, we focus a lot on the Reds, and we focus a lot on the concerns. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, or I hate to be the one that is seemingly always talking negative about our local teams. I want the Cincinnati Reds to head out to, kick off opening day, full swinging, and contend this year. A little, when you get a little taste of that pie and you see how sweet everything is, right? When you win back the fan base, and you could get people to go to the stadiums, and you have crowds to actually play in front of. I've seen teams. Oakland is one of them. I think it's probably the most devastating, scenery to see is Oakland A's baseball. Not because the A's aren't good or not, It's because the fan base. It's not even the fan base. It's because the stadium is, it's not necessarily built to compact a full-on attention audience. You still have the San Francisco Giants across the bay, and you got 162 seasons, games a year up in the Bay Area. You're going to choose Oakland or San Francisco. I choose San Francisco 9 out of 10 times. And for some reason, they never seem to be sold out. And maybe that's another conversation for another day about stadiums wanting to get, 50, 60,000, 70,000 seats in their, venue. But then when it comes down to local sports games, when it doesn't look compact and filled, it makes a difference on television viewings. It makes a difference on the energy that these ball players are actually performing at. I know, we talked about this years ago during the pandemic. We know how difficult it may be for someone, just for example, wrestlers wrestling in front of nobody, when majority of their matches are based off of the crowd's reaction and involvement. Believe it or not, that's just the bottom line to it. I mean, to separate a decent match to an excellent match is based off of the crowd's reaction. And if you don't have a crowd to feed off of, you could implement crowd noises all you want, but that's not the same from what's actually live. So when you see that, then it's kind of depressing, demoting. Same thing when baseball, it hit different. Even when they try to put cardboard fans in the seats, it just wasn't the same. So to be able to have fans and enough fans, this is the separation from having it at a smaller venue to having it at a massive stadium, is the fans. How's the sound quality? Is the if the fans start cheering or start chanting, how well is that going to echo around the stadium? So all that plays into a factor. But I want to start taking a look beyond the Cincinnati Reds. I want to start taking a look into our division, and I also want to start taking a look into other divisions, other leagues, because Cincinnati Reds, the NL Central, is not the only focus point here. When we start beginning a new season, it's a clean slate. Teams have done their due diligence to improve, and they get that much closer. So realistically, what type of shots do we have, or chances do we have against our division, against our league, against another league? Because we're playing all 29 baseball teams. So we got a lot going on. It is a Thursday morning, March 7th, 2024. If you guys are watching us on our YouTube page, Facebook page, Twitter page, X, Twix, whatever you want to call it, welcome on in. Leave your comments in the chats. I want to hear what you guys have to think or say. And we may display them on the screen and talk about your conversations here. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our webpage at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you get all your TNC Sports Talk needs, whether it's video, audio, blogs, social media accounts, whatever it is, you name it, it'll be on there. We're going to take our first time out of the morning. Come on back. Just for you. So don't go nowhere. Grab your coffee. Stick with us for the next 2 hours as you guys are listening to The Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, I would just like to remind everybody that the TNC Sports Talk YouTube page, our product, is given to you thanks to StreamYard Studios, a proud home of the TNC Sports Talk show. TNC Sports Talk, a throw-in, whatever you want to consider it. It's too early in the morning to do this, and I haven't done an episode in a couple of weeks. But StreamYard Studios, where you can create podcasts, videos, host a virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. You know, I'm still trying to push Steve Barber, who will be, or who is Steve Barber, the founder of Cubicle Chat, who is only an audio podcast. I also like to, you know, he's also the founder and the host of Armchair Booking Wrestling podcast. I know last couple of months he's been intrigued or inspired to wanting to join StreamYard, which I would definitely encourage. I mean, I'd encourage anybody who's doing podcasts coming up here just talking. I like it for podcasts, talk shows. You know, a couple clicks on the button, you can stream across different platforms at the same time. You can live, you can record, have displays, overlays. They have their own music implemented into the program or into the app that you're using. And I just, you know, this isn't an endorsement, you know, although, you know, streamer, you want to give me a call, my number's available. But no, you know, StreamYard's been around, you know, for, you know, years. It's for me the number one streaming platform that I can but you know, the studio that I could use at a couple clicks of the button, I could go click record. You know, I'm not really too big about the OBS studios and doing all the gits and gazmos. You know, when you're writing solo and you gotta produce the show at the same time, you know, fill in the content, you do want to spend more time in the content area. Yeah, I would love to make this, you know, video or these episodes on video a lot more compelling and fun visuals to see, you know, but you know, I'm not gonna go. You know, there's a little extra work into it. I'm not saying I'm not willing to go put in the work to it, but like I said, when you have yourself more so of the, when you have yourself more of the, you have to produce it and then come up with the content. It does become difficult. Talking about Steve, you know, in contact with them a lot. He's going to, is it Chili Cothe, something like that? It's up there in Ohio. They have a couple of times a year, I think, a wrestling event. I know Steve is kind of, you know, he's talked about it a lot, and he's headed up there this weekend, and he's going to get the luxury of being able to see Matt Riddle taking on Rob Van Dam, which you look at Rob Van Dam for a moment, I'm just like, boy, what a, you know, he's still in good shape, really? That's crazy. But he's doing a lot of work over there, so I want to give him a quick shout out. I know I've been on his podcasts the last couple of weeks between Cubicle Chat talking about spring training baseball to Armchair Booking Wrestling podcast. You know, he's kind of you know, in between work right now, and this has given him the opportunity to kind of expand his podcasting abilities. He just recently kind of selected a subject, a new subject every day on a cycle. And so he's been doing it for the last couple of weeks. He's been doing pretty well. He's had a couple other side projects going on for him. Plus, you know, listen, WrestleMania is coming out. He's big about March Madness basketball. He says he's sending me the March Madness bracket tournament. I've never been in one. Don't know how it works. Probably get knocked out. I'm intrigued to learning more about joining one this year. He says you'll email me, so I'm you know, I'll take a look at that bracket myself and see how I could pick. I don't know how you could be perfect all the way through, so I'll probably be knocked out the first round, to be honest. But I think it would just be fun just to join it and compare amongst others, and what it could be. But go check out his stuff at Cubicle Chat podcast. That's only audio. Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is audio and on YouTube, so you can't miss that out. And he is also on social media as well. So check out Steve Barber and what's going on his channel. Love to collaborate with them from time to time as we work on these programs. The only reason I bring this up or I even talk about this is because, I want to consider I'm a gamer, but I like the video games. I like playing them. I'm 20. I'm gonna be 29 this year. I'm still a kid at heart. You know, for me, when it comes down to playing video games, there's a certain I can't just pick up a video game and say, all right, let's play it. I'm very restricted. I think I've shared a little bit about this in the past, but I strictly talk of, I play baseball, I'll play football. I think I'll play hockey more than basketball. I tried hockey last year, or basketball last year. I just couldn't, one, I don't get the newest basketball games because I don't even necessarily follow the season. And so, I tried it last year. Really, the past fall, I wasn't really a fan of it. I enjoyed it, but nothing compared to like maybe wanting to try hockey. A little bit more. So maybe this fall I may consider investing into a hockey game. I don't want to. My thing is that video games are getting ungodly expensive. You got the WWE 2K24 coming out tomorrow. People has had early access already. You also have MLB The Show coming out at the end of this month, probably in 2 weeks. I believe so. 2 weeks, the 18th, or I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Let me see. It does. March 19th, which is so like in less than 2 weeks. Not even, probably a week from Tuesday. More so. Which is exciting, so when it comes down to video games, that's how I play it. Baseball, I play a franchise mode. Also play Road to the Show a little bit, but mainly a franchise mode guy, where I kind of like to take the local team, make some changes, acquisitions, and I try not to compare that or get that tangled up with talking Reds baseball with you guys, because on my roster, I try to keep it as similar as possible. But on my roster, I've re-signed Harrison Bader and Hunter Renfroe because I knew we needed right-handed at-bats in the outfield. I still have the Jake Fraley, TJ Friedel, Will Benson right now. But, right-handed at-bats strongly hold. And, I'm playing through spring training of the 2K, of the MLB The Show 23, and I'm noticing that Christian Encarnacion Strand isn't really performing as well. And so I'm like, well, why move Steer out to left if I don't have an at bat at first? They're both right-handed, and CES is still developing. So I'm not in a rush to bring him back. Other than that, I added, so you can make some courageous moves. I'm still looking at guys like. Who could be my fifth slot? I added the Frankie Montas, and I added the Brent Sutter to the roster. But I've also included a guy like Ryan Weathers, who could provide depth to the bullpen and longevity. I also added a guy like I added a guy like Logan Allen, who can also provide some sort of depth in the rotation. So I play franchise mode, football, I'll get the new game, and play franchise mode, follow along with the seasons, just see how I do comparison. Wrestling, I'll try to play. I would like them to update their, their universe mode, because I'm really, like to follow that along. And I don't get me wrong, I don't think it's terrible, but I feel like that's one area in their video games that they haven't really improved much on. I know they really, hit the nail with the coffin there on the My GM. Although I think, they're very limited. I still think that they could be improvements on it, but I like the My GM. I like the regular gameplay. I like the rise. I like the change of the storyline, because it really, and if you played the rise over the years, you've seen the story mode change, which is good, because you've also seen uh, you've been able to see how wrestling and how the growth of, all right, if I'm a young kid today, the steps it would take to become a wrestler, especially in one of these big indies. Last year they focused a lot on the indies before, hey, you had to go out, just like Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, they've had to leave to come back, to make a name for themselves, and so they focused on that last year, which I thought was great. Previous years they focused on NXT, WWE, and then they focused on independent NXT, WWE, so forth. And I think the only thing I'd like to see change with that, because I love the cutscenes, I love the storylines. They had they've been including a male female version to change the dynamic of it. What I would like to see, though, a little bit more is like, all right, if I was to finish playing 23's, my rise, how can I carry that career, or that works over to 24? And can you just continue? How, like in MLB The Show, you play, the road to the show, and then you just continue. Was it that, or there was a video game where you could just continue? I know, like franchise mode, where you could continue what you're already working on and just import it into the new game. So I don't know. I mean, I like it. I'll take it. I'll work on getting it. I don't know if I'll get it tomorrow, because you got all your DLC packs. You got, everyone's going to be buying it. It's going to take all day to download. It's going to, so, and about the first day, like for me, I'm looking at it, Major League Baseball season is coming up. And I like to get the new roster. I don't want to play on it just a, roster that the computer built for me. So if I get the game on the 19th or sometime in the next 2 weeks, I can work on transitioning my rosters over to the new game, and then start that, because that's practically a week away from the regular season. WWE, I'm still working on the universe mode of 23, and that's leading up to WrestleMania. So I could technically go past March into the beginning of April to play, continue playing 23, getting it in April, maybe even May, where the first DLC packs are headed out. The point is, it's coming out. WWE 2K24 is coming out tomorrow. I know this show isn't a whole lot about video games, but I do play some video games, so I feel like there's an importance of talking about this. And you also, when you are watching the wrestling, you're seeing, the ratings. WWE, you can see Michael Cole and Pat McAfee discuss their opinions and thoughts on how the ratings and where should people be rated at, if they agree or not, compared to the game. And so that's a way to connect and to sell and promote. And, and I don't like it. I know they used to do this back in October of every year. Pandemic hit. They took a year off because they really went downhill with what they were trying to do. They got a much larger roster. I'm talking about almost 300 players. Man, characters. That's crazy. Last year was what, 210. You add an extra at least 50 or 70 plus, characters, plus all the download thing, content you could, make. Um, I think the only thing that I looked at is like the DLC packs are in expansion packs take you all the way out through September, October. I think that keeps people invested throughout the year instead of crumbling them all up in one. What I would like to see them do is they've done it before last year, is that, when things change, they announced the DLC packs, but I would also, one person they don't have in the roster of the DLC pack is, Andrade. Could they, between now and one time, fit in an Andrade inside that? They don't have AOP, who just returned to WWE. Could you possibly see, if you're putting DLC packs in September, October, November, which is fine by me, could you possibly see them? I would like to see them add those characters on, because the DLC packs that they've added are great and all, but a lot of people like to play with updated characters, and sometimes their characters are not in the system, or I don't consider myself tech savvy, so I don't go jumping into the system and really recreating an AOP or an Andrade at that point. So, but WWE 2K24 coming your way tomorrow. If you've had the early access, let me know how that game is. I also know that there's glitches and all that stuff left and right. So let's take a timeout. Come on back. WWE is officially getting their Hall of Fame class sorted out. About time, And we'll talk all that coming your way as we head to the bottom hour, number one here. You guys are listening to the Throwing on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. You know, when we talk about, I haven't really brought this up, and I tried to not bring it up until it's needed. But every year, I think one of the more staples of WrestleMania, as we get closer to WrestleMania, is the Hall of Fame. And you look at every class, and you look at who's in there, and do they deserve to be in there? And I think it's fair to say that over the years, WWE has inducted people that probably were better off not being inducted quite yet. I know recent years they've done a lot better, and it's much more difficult because you're seeing guys like last year was tough because you saw Rey Mysterio, who's I call a legend in the lucha libre wrestling genre, and with WCW, with WWE, being that little man. I don't want to be banned, right? I guess, Kevin Patrick apparently got fired because he called somebody little, or called like what, Pete Dunne little or something like that. So I'm like, man, well, Rey Mysterio was that against all odds guy, and he he had to go up against guys like Brock Lesnar, like Big Show, like The Undertaker and Kane, where they were twice his size. And, when all odds were stacked against him, he relied on to his techniques, his skills, his moves to outsource his opponents a lot of times. And that created a lot of great matches with guys like Angle and Eddie and, so forth. So, but, let's be realistic. Over the years, we've seen, people in the Hall of Fame that has not been in, that probably you could question about why they were in, what type of impact. And for me, it's about the impact. All right. There's celebrities that have came through that have made an impact and left a mark on WWE. Okay. Mike Tyson. Can't think of, why can't I think of them on the top of my head? Anyways, they'll come back to me. And I'm not talking about those guys, those celebrities who used to host Monday Night Raw, back in the day. I'm talking about the Pete Roses, the guys who have came in and and actually involved themselves in WWE, took a fix it. As much as you hate Logan Paul, and I think we could all say that we are not a huge fan of Logan Paul, you got to give him credit because he takes this business very seriously. Okay. And he's proven that he belongs in that ring, that he can be a wrestler. Yeah. Do I think it takes away from a talent that's already out there? Yeah. Okay. I do. But he's earned his spot and he's worked hard to get there. Everyone can shoot on Ronda Rousey and that she doesn't belong in the ring. She may not be the greatest in-ring competitor, but it is also very hard to compete successfully in different companies. Now, was Ronda maybe given a little bit more for what she was in UFC? Maybe, but you can't tell me she didn't try, because she tried. Bad Bunny probably does not belong in that ring, but he worked extremely hard for the opportunity that he was given to him, and he didn't go put over a mediocre match. So there are scenarios where talent, and he's left, and then he's helped WWE out tremendously. So I think that if it comes time to induct a guy like Bad Bunny, I'm not saying this year, I'm not saying in 5 years, but he is a guy on the list. My other thing is, we are aware that there are talent that has not, that probably are deserving. I was talking to Trey the earlier this week about it, and we brought up the guy, guys like Lex Luger, uh, and how maybe he deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. We talked about the guys like Bray Wyatt, who recently passed, could be a candidate to be in the Hall of Fame this year, at some point, hopefully, if not this year, down the road. But there are deserving people that, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And it's important that the class doesn't need to be big. But they need to, like I said, have an impact. This year, now the WWE has been usually it's been one wrestler a week where they announce it on a Monday Night Raw, they showcase it, Raw, SmackDown, move on to the next guy or girl or faction, whatever. Earlier this week, we learned that Paul Heyman was going to be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame. And we'll get back to him. Earlier, I don't know if this was yesterday or this morning, but I just found out that Bull Nakano will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Bull Nakano wrestled from 1983 to 2012. Okay. She wrestled in All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. She wrestled in Lucha Libre, WWF, WCW. She's done a lot. And when you think of a generation that started back in the 1980s, where women wrestling was not revolutionized, and let's face it, women's wrestling has not really taken a full-on reign. I know they tried it a decade ago, but there's still so much that wrestling has to offer for the women's category division that when we talk about females like the fabulous Moolah, Medusa, Beth Phoenix, Michelle McCool, and we consider them wrestlers. We consider Trish Stratus, Lita wrestlers, and they were around a time period where women wrestling was not so much fond of. So, and they were used most of the time around that time. They were used in more of a feminine role, feminine appearance. Let's not showcase what you could do in the ring. Let's showcase what type of relationships you can have with the audience and with the wrestlers to engage storylines, right? To be able to survive and be a name for yourself during that time period where you're still talked about today, I think is definitely self-worthy. She is a AJW champion. She's a junior champion, Pacific champion, WWWA World Single Champion, 1983 Rookie of the Year Decision Tournament, Japan Grand Prix in 1988, Tag League The Best, 1985 with Dump Matsumoto, a All Japan Women's Hall of Fame in 1998. She's Lucha Libre. She was a champion, world's women champion, Lucha Libre. Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame, class of 2001. WWF, WWE. She was a WWF Women's Champion, a Slammy Award winning, Most Devastating in 1994. WWE Hall of Fame will be later on this year. Her accomplishments in the ring as well as outside the ring. She's also a professional golfer as well. So congratulations to Bull Nakano. And, if you haven't learned anything about her, well, there you have. and I just suggest taking some time to go learn a little bit more about her. The biggest one to mention is Paul Heyman, who we talked earlier, currently still involved in WWE. For how long, I don't know. He is the advocate, or he's the wise man to the bloodline. I wanted to share this, but I'm not going to. But if you could actually get it for $30. This is where, like, tax returns kind of help me, because I kind of want to get this right now. They're selling Hall of Fame t-shirts for Paul Heyman for $32.99 while supplies last and while the discount lasts here. Paul Heyman and his accomplishments. Okay, I was looking at this. Okay, it says CEO of the Dangerous Alliance, owner of Extreme Championship Wrestling, Raw color commentator, SmackDown GM, the advocate, special counsel, the wise man to the bloodline. That's on the back of a shirt for Paul Heyman. On the front, it has a Paul Heyman picture. And you know what? I mean, a lot of people kind of disliked Paul Heyman at the beginning because he was sneaky, malicious. I mean, he had a really talk about it. I mean, have you heard of Paul Heyman's story? Because if you have, you probably understand and would agree with me that this is a guy who had to really sneak in to this industry, had to sneak in and just bullshit his way through the company in order to get what he wanted, and it brought him a lot of success. He was definitely ahead of his time in knowledge. I think he had a great idea with the ECW before it was even a thought. And then he, something that you think maybe they would have butt heads over time, but they didn't. So, to be able to work out in WWE and then to be advocates, to guys like Punk and, Brock Lesnar, Ryback at some point, even Curtis Axel. And these are guys that, and just let's not forget about his knowledge and creativity, his storyline. Like, how much involved is he now in creating stories and, telling stories, and his wisdom is just, I think he goes down for me as one of the greatest, managers of all time, not just on a manager role, but he's probably one of the greatest, non-multi-millionaire businessman that worthy of how the rest of the class handles, is being laid out over the next few weeks. But we could finally start talking about Hall of Fames and recognizing some of these guys. And get those t-shirts over at the WWEshop.com. Not an endorsement, by the way. So, hour number 1 has concluded. We'll come on back. In hour number 2, we'll transition into baseball. I still have a little bit more wrestling conversations coming your way. But some more baseball conversations as we get closer to opening day and much more. You guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty. Hour number 2 on the program. We would like to give a big shout out to Spreaker from iHeartRadio. Spreaker is not just an audio listening app. You can upload your own very personal podcast, distribute it across all major platforms, and be able to monetize and view analytics. For more information, check out Spreaker.com. Just for an example, I upload our podcast on Spreaker. Steve from Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, he'll upload his podcast from Spreaker onto Spreaker. And he doesn't just have Armchair Booking, he also has Cubicle Chat, I believe. So 7 o'clock in the morning, breaking up bright and early for you guys. Weather is starting to look more like springtime on this fine Thursday, March 7th, 2024. So, all right. So I was thinking about this hour number 2, how we're going to get down, because we got baseball, we got wrestling, a little bit of football conversation left in our program for you guys today. And I wanted to jump into this topic. I think it's number one topic conversation. Let me fix this. All right. So before I get into this conversation, I just want to personally take this moment to acknowledge, taking our time on the program to acknowledge the icon Sting, who just recently retired from in-ring action this past Sunday at AEW Revolution. You know, I know this is late to the story, and that's because I've been trying to fill it in whenever we're going to go live next. But it's important to have this conversation and to let you guys know how we feel about Sting. Probably one of our favorite icons. You know, growing up, it was The Undertaker for me. Still is The Undertaker for me. I've always got attracted to the concept of a good gimmick. A good gimmick that then, you know, that you made people believe. The Undertaker was a character who you didn't know his origins. You didn't really know who he was outside of the ring. He kept his life very, very secretive, sacred, personal. Even when you did see him out in public, he was in character. And to see this guy now who is not that, demon like that you used to see on television. You hear stories about it sends chills down your spine, all the way up until he retired. You hear those gongs and you get chills. When you think of Kane, when you think of people who could play with elements that you probably wish you could play with, and just, a snap of the finger make magic happen. I think that is insane. It's incredible. That's why I got behind Bray Wyatt so much, because those mind games, it's being able to pull those off and make them believable. For me, that's what I got behind with. Now, Sting, yeah, he had a persona before he became the only type of Sting I remember was the face paint. I didn't watch WCW. I was too young. I saw him mainly in TNA. Then he had his time with the WWE, which I felt was very short, not to anyone's fault, but it is what it is. And at least he got an opportunity and got inducted when he did. And then now he finished off his time in AEW. And you know what? And I'm going to go back and I'm going to wish that I did buy AEW Revolution, but I think I'm satisfied where I'm at. It is a touching moment to talk about one of your, I want to say idols, but one of the guys you do look towards in the wrestling industry when he is ready to hang up the boots once and for all. Sting is not the guy to go mess around like Ric Flair, say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to retire. I'm not going to retire." He's not doing the hocus pocus. He's retiring. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go see him maybe from time to time on the ring, but he's also a guy who is not very well, shadowed of, open of his life. You don't know every details of where he's going, when he's going. I've never even also gotten a chance to go see Sting and perform or wrestle live, which is unfortunate. But his character, when he went transformed to the Crow Sting, I think then you had the Wolf Pack. I love the red and one, black. You got the mat, you got the face paint, all that stuff. He came up with a group of guys, guys like the Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and I don't think he gets a lot of recognition for what he's accomplished. I don't. He's supposed to be the highlight of the weekend last weekend, but guess what? The story that we're about to talk about with the Bloodline and The Rock's announcement and challenge that he issued last Friday overshadowed Sting's final farewell match. Okay. Now, I will say this: he's a well-deserved guy. He's a Hall of Famer in all categories. He's one of those characters who was not grown up in the WWE and not shaped into WWE, but yet worked very well. And there's a very few guys out there in the indie circuit that's been in the indie circuit, that's only lived in the indie circuit majority of their life, and they've been successful. And he is one of them. Hey, Hall of Fame, go right off into the sunset. Hopefully we see you on a better day, on another day. Don't be a stranger, but enjoy your time, and everything that you've given us in between there has been cherished. So that's our tribute to Sting, because he is a icon. He is a legend for that. But we want to talk about the Bloodline, who challenged officially last Friday. It's been the conversation around professional wrestling. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes to a tag match in night one of WrestleMania 40. Now, we already know that Seth Rollins will face Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship night 2. We also know that Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns will face each other for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship night 2 of WrestleMania, from our understanding. But The Rock comes out. This goes back to Elimination Chamber. A little bit of backstory for you guys early this morning. But you have The Rock or Cody Rhodes on the Grayson Waller effect challenging The Rock to a match anytime, anywhere. The Rock and Roman Reigns, who responded last Friday, goes out and responds to that challenge and says, you know what? Since you two are thick of thieves and you guys want to put your money where your mouth is, why don't both of you guys face us at night 1? The Rock also throws in the stipulation where if The Rock wins, or if the Bloodline wins, then it's going to be the Bloodline rules at WrestleMania 40, which means anybody that The Rock could sit at ringside in his lovely chair, that Solo Sikoa could sing karaoke, Jimmy Uso could whack you over with the kendo stick, and Paul Heyman could pull brass knuckles out of his pants. Bridges. But if Seth and Cody can beat Roman and the Rock, then the bloodline will be barred from ringside, and the Rock has given him his word. So in an initial storyline from where we were going to see The Rock at WrestleMania 40, potentially seeing Roman Reigns, to where we could have seen Cody Rhodes versus The Rock at WrestleMania 40, to now a tag team match. I think we started expecting this, right? Well, it makes sense. You're not putting The Rock in a singles match right now. I don't think he's ready for a singles match. Not saying nothing bad towards The Rock. I think The Rock is a good athlete. I still think he could hold his own in a singles match, but I don't think he's in ring shape for a full on match that is, probably 5-10 minutes long. Don't think of that. You also got now. So how do you do that? You got to throw Roman Reigns with him. Makes it a tag match. The only person right now on Cody's side is Seth Rollins, which means you still got, but Seth Rollins just got cleared to wrestle and defend his championship. But, just because he's been cleared doesn't mean he's 100%, which means that we have a little bit more to understand here. Seth Rollins could potentially re-aggravate his knee in WrestleMania Night 1. This is what you're risking. So you don't have one, you don't have two, but you have three athletes intentions of wrestling 2 nights of WrestleMania. If you have Seth Rollins, who is still, like I said, he's not going to be 100% for this match. Plus, if he's having to wrestle the next night, he's going to have to conserve some of himself. So then you have The Rock, who's basically, so you have two guys out of it, in my opinion. And then so it's going to be Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, night 1, basically. Let's not forget the Bloodlines interference because you have Solo and, whatever Jimmy's going to do. Well, you also got, thinking about this, you're also risking Seth Rollins getting hurt. I'm not worried about The Rock. If he gets hurt, whatever. I'm worried about Seth Rollins getting hurt. I'm worried about Cody Rhodes getting hurt for night 2. I'm worried about Roman Reigns getting hurt for night 2. So you're taking some risk, some pretty big risk of the ultimate goal is the main event of night 2, which is Roman and Cody. And if something would happen to them prior to that, I think, WrestleMania thoughts fail. So, what do you think of this match? I mean, I still like this match. I think that this is still very well of a good match. I think it was anticipated, but we are anticipating a lot of things here. We're going to cut to a break here in a minute, but I do want to talk when we come back a lot about one more thing about the acknowledgement that happened, which I think highlighted the entirety of the segment. But you do take risk factors, putting them in a tag team match. Not like I don't want to see it. I want to see it. But when you don't see it, but if we have to be very careful. Now, if Seth Rollins injures himself in this tag match, the first thing I think of is that Damian has to cash in. Either that night or at the beginning of night 2. And I still think that that's something that is going to happen regardless. I still have it where, and now there's been conversation, and we could talk about this later, that CM Punk could potentially find himself somewhere involved in night 2 of WrestleMania among the Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins match. But the only way I see a lot of it happening is if Damian Priest gets involved too. I digress. But this is going to be a good tag team match here. Let's come on. I'm going to take a break. Come on back. We're going to talk about the acknowledgement portion of this, of that segment that transpired, transition into some baseball and whatnot. So still a lot more to come. Hour number 2 here. You guys are listening to the Throwing on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. Alrighty, everyone's slowly getting up in the morning, getting ready to go. All right. Well, we talked about the challenge that The Rock has made on behalf of the bloodline to face Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. And we understand, the concept of the match. And I think everyone should understand the concept of a match. It's not just something that we're excited on seeing. It's something that there's a purpose for it. And when you have The Rock coming back, his intentions, I think the WWE intentions were for him to compete in the ring at WrestleMania. Now, whether or not he's ready for WrestleMania or not, that's another story. But this is why you throw him in tag team action, so you don't have to have him compete alone. Because if this was, because you're probably asking 5, 10, 15 matches. Not saying that he's not capable of doing it, but I don't know. I guess I was stunned by seeing how winded he was when he had his encounter 2.5 months ago back on day one. But now, see, this is what's also transpiring is because we're seeing at the end of the segment, Roman Reigns interrupts The Rock, which I was like, oh no, you don't do that. You interrupt The Rock and Roman Reigns is wanting him to acknowledge Roman as the tribal chief. So, which is, it is up happening, but I'm like, what is this setting up with? I hear people gesture to what's behind the little L that The Rock is putting up. Seth Rollins referenced it on Raw when they are intended to go respond to The Rock and Roman. But then you also have so The Rock acknowledges Roman as their tribal chief. I'm waiting for this to all turn. And you're seeing signs of it. You see that The Rock is standing separate from the bloodline, although he's still in the same ring. You're seeing certain gestures to say that, all this would happen. I would personally like to see, in preference, I would like to, I want to see the best man win, but I would like to see the bloodline win night one you could automatically just put it back on fans that that Roman Reigns is going to win. If the bloodline wins night one, okay, where, Roman Reigns finds a way to win or The Rock finds a way to win. But you know what? The Rock also acknowledges and then sees the point of view of what Cody Rhodes has done. Therefore, during night two, whatever goes down, The Rock can turn on the entire bloodline. Because I think that The Rock single-handedly can turn on the entire bloodline. Hell, throw Jay back in there. Get Jay involved. Because you're going to use Jimmy and Solo. That then, right then and there, gives Cody the time to finish his story when you have The Rock and Jay eliminating Jimmy and Solo, right? Leveling out the playing fields. But then you could set up this feud for down the road. I'm not talking Backlash. I'm talking SummerSlam. I'm talking Survivor Series. You could have multiple parts, or even next year at WrestleMania. So there is a lot that can now transpire, but this is what creates good TV. good transaction. But we're still waiting back to hear, because Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes had this conversation last Monday night about, well, are we going to do this or not? And at the end of the day, you last year you came this close. If we could get over this hump, let's do it. So a lot's going on there, but we'll have to see as SmackDown's tomorrow night, and we'll see what happens. All right, we're going to transition into some baseball. Man, I got to tell you, when it's baseball season, I got a chance to go out to the first Bearcats game of the season. They faced, was it Northern Illinois on Sunday? Got a chance to watch the game last night where they dominated Akron 19-9. I felt like that match. So Sunday they actually cut the game. They had a game last Friday against Northern Illinois, and that was supposed to be a doubleheader, but because of the rain, they only did one game. And then they had a doubleheader on Saturday, and then Sunday they were up 14 to 4 or something like that, and they called it after 7 innings. Well, I think a lot of people were thinking that they were going to call it after 7 innings because it was like 14-5 or something like that by the 7th. But nope, they paid for it. They played the extra 2 innings, and what was interesting is that Akron started crawling back in, cut down the lead to 7. And then a couple of home runs. It was a big Carrington Cross had a great game, and Josh, what's his name? I know his name. Trust me, you guys. I know his name. It wasn't Carrington Cross. It was Josh who? Oh my goodness. How come I can't remember his name? I have it here, so hold on, you guys. I got it. I'm doing it. I will find it. It was Josh something. I know it. Don't give up on me yet, Josh. It was Josh Cross. And then, what is it? I think it was just Josh Cross. Trying to find the official. It was Josh Cross with the K. That's where I had the confusion of. Carrington Cross is with a C. Anyways, went out to like I said, Bearcats on Sunday. Started feeling a little bit better. Watched the game. We left after the 6th inning, but they cut it after 7. Last night there was another big game, and this is a great momentum heading into the new conference. We knew the struggles that football and basketball had, and they kicked things off. I was a little surprised that they went 9 innings, considering they kicked things off with conference play this weekend at Kansas State. But it kind of now just gets you ready for some Major League Baseball as we dive into, the Cincinnati Reds, who had a split, squad yesterday, beat game 1. Yesterday they beat the Padres. Let me try to get to the website here. They got shut out by the Brewers in game 1, 2-0, and then they beat the Padres 6-2. Heading into today, they got the Cubs tonight, 8:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You got Hunter Green on the mound, who's 1-1 with a 3.86 ERA. They're 6-5 on spring training, and a lot of people are saying, you go out to say that, hey, listen, spring training doesn't mean much. Well, you see players make progress. And you already take a look into, teams that are ready or not even ready for the season, or, players. I know Noel V. Marte was struggling, to get ready for the, spring training. Matt McClain, Jonathan India, who are kind of expecting to make their spring training debut this weekend, right? And then you got guys like Lodolo throws live BP. So these are all progress being made. And I think it's well established. We want we want these guys up, ready to go come opening day. And this is where spring training kind of gets all of that working a little bit. But my thing is that, if Lodolo's going to be hurt, if India is going to be hurt, if McLean's going to be hurt, then we need to see who we have down in the minors. Is it worth signing Josh Harrison to a deal if we could keep him for the first half of the season and he could benefit the squad? I mean, we're also in the conversations of, well, Spencer Steer is playing third base. And, you have Christian Encarnacion Strand or Jameer Candelario now playing first. But do you think they need to get reps? And we need to have a clear understanding, because come opening day, if Christian Encarnacion Strand is not performing the way that the Reds probably will like him to perform, because the way I'm seeing it, he's probably going to be a 4-5-6 guy in that lineup. And he's going to have to contribute. And if he's not contributing, and let's say Noel V. Marte is healthy and he's contributing better, then we may see Noel V at third, see Candelario at first, or Christian Encarnacion Strand at first and Candelario at third. We also have to think about how does Elliot Dela Cruz play? If Matt McClain, India's going down, they're up and down to begin the season. Who's taking that second base spot? Are we trusting in Jose Barrero? Or are we throwing our trust into, Josh Harrison? So right now there are questions. And I think right now for the Cincinnati Reds, as we look in midway through the spring training, is what are our plan B options? Could we see if injuries on the infield acquired, because this was the number one offseason problem, was that we had a lot of infielders, we had a lot of outfielders, we need to sort through them. If they're becoming a problem, then does Spencer Steer need to go back over to first base? How much will you have to take away from Tyler Stevenson to play first base this year, depending on scenarios? So, I'm still confident. We still got a group of guys. This is what spring training's for. It's frustrating to see guys get hurt off the bat, to kick things off, because, you want people healthy. We're also relying on David Bell and Nick Kroll to make those tough decisions on when to use people, how long should you let them rest. I think one of the pivotal points of spring training, David Bell has gone out there and said that they're not rushing anybody. This is a marathon, not a sprint. They have 162 games, and whether you start off 26 and 5, which we've seen from the Pittsburgh Pirates last year, right? We saw how crazy Pittsburgh got off to a great lead, but then they just stumbled. And it wasn't like they were terrible. They were bound with injuries. They just stumbled. They struggled. And so you don't want that in, the Reds organization. I know I don't. But this is beyond, I think it's time to also start looking beyond the what we see in Cincinnati, because other things are happening in the division. And where do we fit at in the division, and how do we contend against other great teams in the league? Because we're not the only team. We don't just have to beat 4 other teams. We have 15 other teams, and hell, 29 other teams that we have to beat. And so that's what we're going to dive into here at the bottom of the hour. Coming up next, we'll talk some Major League Baseball heading into as spring training continues, and we wrap up our program. All right, so don't go nowhere, because the throwing continues here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, welcome on back here. Bottom half of the program. And I want to get back into the conversations of Major League Baseball. You know, we focus a lot on the Cincinnati Reds. I don't think we get a chance to stop and take a look about what else are we having to face, you know, other than on our own internal problems related to injuries and progress being made heading towards the regular season. You know, our off season was consisted of different dynamics, right? We picked up Candelario, Emilio Pagan, Frankie Montas, all to kind of help provide some experience or some stability in while we are still, you know, looking at Noelvi Marte and Christian Encarnacion, and you know, while we are still trying to develop guys like Andrew Appen and Brandon Williamson. And then we also tackle on that bullpen that, you know, you need help. And we've already been over through this time and time and time again on what we need in order to, I would say, to get over that hump, because we're, you know, we can't let our bullpen, you know, eat innings like they did last year. You know, and a winning ball club, we've explained this before. A winning ball club does not do that, right? They got started, they got solid, consistent starting rotations. Same thing with the bull, you know, for the bullpen's help. So besides our spring training issues, which I don't think that there's a whole lot. It's just trying to pin, like, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Trying to fix all that. But we're not only looking at us. You know, what else has the NL Central done that we're competing against? You know, obviously we're not facing them often. You know, so we're not, and what I think is great is, like, you know, things like we're not going to have to worry about facing a guy like Corbin Burns 4 times a year, because he got traded off to Baltimore. But if you look at Chicago, they didn't really kind of make any splashes this offseason. Matter of fact, they barely re-signed Cody Bellinger to a deal. And I don't know how much more that really does to their team. How many more W's does Cody Bellinger provide to a squad these days? I don't know. I question that. So could we contend to somebody like the Chicago Cubs, who I think is one of the threats heading into the season? Okay. The other thing is, too, that we also need to pay attention towards is Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee is kind of on the soft side. They're getting ready to kind of rebuild. They don't want to lose their position, so they're being extra cautious. But they want to rebuild their structure from the players they have. You saw Corbin move to Baltimore. I mean, you still have, I think, an elite group of guys out there, but you can see some of the changes being made already. And that may or may not affect them, but as a team who won their division last year, they're still probably still favored in the NL Central. St. Louis, you know, they haven't plummeted, but they are kind of restructuring themselves. Pittsburgh has always been there, but it's trying to find the 162 game consistency. So when we go back around to Cincinnati and we talk about, well, this is what the Reds have talked about. The Reds have talked about this. We don't need to rush our guys being healthy. If Matt McLain is not 100% ready to go by opening day, we don't need to rush them. Now, a lot of us, and I may even be one of them, may hit that panic button opening day if we see India McLain on the IL. You know, I still think my questions for the Reds are: Steer is needing to, how well is he in left field? Is he suitable to play every day in the outfield? From that transition from third base to first base to outfield, is he suitable? And will that position change distract his offensive ability? My second thing is, too, McLain becoming an everyday starter where second base, okay. I see McLain more of an utility guy. And it's hard to come across a good, talented guy who could just focus on his at-bats and then filling in when's needed. I understand what the Reds want to do, but I don't see India as a utility guy on the bench. Now, India has the power, but he's also, and yeah, you'll use him a lot as a DH, but I see him, I think he has offensive ability that I think you need to utilize at second base. And I don't know if he could play short. I know he can play maybe a little bit of third. I don't know anything about the outfield, but what I do know is that he's an everyday lineup. So how does Jonathan India's new contract and new rule come opening day, make that adjustment and impact the team? And we could talk about all this stuff until we're blue in the face during spring training, but the idea is spring training, and it's something I do on the video games, is I'm saying, all right, how is Spencer Steer doing in left field? Right now I got Christian Encarnacion Strand not playing. I mentioned this early in the program, so I'm moving him over. This is just the NL Central. Okay. So I think, yes, do I have confidence? I think we do have a chance. We have a really good chance at winning the NL Central at most. And we already know that NL Central is notorious. If they're not winning it, you're most likely maybe not finding a wild card spot. Maybe one, but probably the bottom. So now we look into where else can we see competition in our league. We had some really good series against Atlanta. I know New York is kind of always there. Washington's kind of struggling. Miami's struggling. Philadelphia. So Philadelphia, Atlanta. I really like the Atlanta series. I thought that was good. Bring that back again. I think now you're kind of like, all right, if we could face the Braves and go toe to toe with them, make it interesting every game of the series, then I think we're in good hands. But that's only on the East, because I still think the team that is to beat is those Dodgers. They just picked up Ohtani. They got Teoscar Hernandez. They added a couple of more additions to their pitching rotation. I mean, they're depth in. When we thought that the Dodgers were in rebuild mode and that, they're going to go just utilize farm systems, they cashed all in their blue chips, saying that we're ready to go now. And, they're taking that big chance with Ohtani because he just got done with Tommy John surgery and he's expected to be the DH. And yeah, he looks really good. But who knows when his arm gets there if he's ready to go pitching ever again. A lot of pitchers, in that sense, they get hurt, and you just don't see the same type of pitcher you once saw when they were good. The Padres are trying to figure things out. They added Matt Snitcher. They got Manny Machado. Yeah, they let go. They just moved Kim over to short. Bogarts at second. Crony at first. Figuring out some that outfield power or whatnot. San Francisco always seems to look good. Arizona was a World Series team last year. Are they still this World Series team this year? But, and then the travel back and forth between West Coast and East Coast is going, it's always kind of one of those things. So here's what I'm looking at, and I'll pull up the schedule here. We're going to actually start looking into the schedule here in just a few weeks as we probably try to pay attention, a little closer attention. Spring training right now, for those who are paying attention, they're home to the Cubs. Then there'll be a visitor on the Dodgers. They have a split squad against the Diamondbacks Saturday. And then they have the Guardians on Sunday. They'll have Monday off. Spring breakout. Reds prospects at Rangers prospects. Okay, so that's just prospects level. I know that they're doing that again with Cleveland. Okay, so that's next week. All right, so we're moving along. We host off Washington. Philadelphia, where it's going to be cold in Philadelphia. I can tell you that. So, I mean, we'll start looking into the schedule. But in my opinion, when we look at the Cincinnati Reds, there is the Dodgers that they need to beat. I think everyone needs to beat them, followed by the Braves. And you start going down that list, you may throw in Philadelphia, San Diego, before you start touching anybody from the NL Central. And one thing that's going to help the Reds a lot is not just getting off to an early lead. Because I'm an old fashioned. I say, listen, you need to win the games that you should be winning. You should be taking the series that you should be taking. And you look at the early on in the season, Washington's that first series at home. You should be taking that series. You should be taking the series. You may not take the series in Philadelphia, but you should come back and take the series against New York and the Mets. Milwaukee would be a first great challenge to have to see how you go against your own division, And if Milwaukee is expected to be one of those teams at the top of the division at the end of the year, then this would be that standard. Now, we mentioned we're not rushing back any players, so there may be a couple guys beginning the season on the IL. Right? It's a marathon, not a race. But at the same time, you face Milwaukee, and they won the division last year. You want to prove to everybody that we are a serious team, especially at home. We need to take a series or two from these top teams. So if you're talking about picking up wins that you should be picking up, a series is Washington, a series is the Mets and Milwaukee. Chicago's on a rebuild mode, so if you're heading out to Chicago early April, you should be beating them also in a series. And let's not forget about Seattle taking on the Mariners in Seattle. That may be a true challenge, but out of the first 5-6 series, I'm already projecting that the Reds, if they want to, be in a good position and they're a solid team that they expected to be, they should only be losing 2 series so far in April. You get the Angels, which you should beat. Philadelphia, you could split. Texas will probably be a good challenge, and then the Padres in San Diego. So, and you're a little bit everywhere from East Coast to West Coast action. So the weather may be a little bit more permittable out there on the West Coast early on. You're out there on the West Coast all of May before you start coming back here to the Mid-Central with St. Louis, Chicago, Milwaukee in June, before you head out to the East Coast in July, August, and September. So you're heading I think you have an advantage of beginning your season out mainly on the West Coast. And if you could do that and you could capitalize or take advantage of that, then I think just maybe Cincinnati has a good chance. But, you're going up against guys like Ohtani and Yamamoto, and, Snell still hasn't even signed with the ball club yet. Braves are still the elite team and all that fun stuff. You can't sit there and just look at our let's see what we have compared to everyone else fate going up against. And if you draw it on the board, they should be winning. But that all depends. All right. Our program has come to an end. It feels good to be back, man. lot more conversations coming your way. Tomorrow we will get you ready for the weekend. Cincinnati Bearcats open up Big 12 conference play this weekend at Kansas State. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. NCAA basketball is wrapping up on the season. March Madness is about to start. Much more to talk all your way. But until then, be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Check out our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. And until then, you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay warm, stay dry. Take care.